week 3 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few tight ends I looked at off the wire this week. The first guy, Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals. So last week I mentioned Ertz as an ad. And Ertz, he just goes out there, he gets open. I know he's not the fastest guy, but the route running and the IQ and the way he knows how to work the middle of the field, he just gets open, even with porous quarterbacks at times. So week 1 at Washington, 6 catches, 21 yards. And week 2 versus the Giants, 6 catches, 56 yards. So Joshua Dobbs, obviously a young quarterback still in terms of starting and playing a lot of football. He's going to rely on the security blanket in the tight end of Zach Ertz. And like I said, Zach Ertz, he always goes out there. He runs his route. He's got a good IQ for the game. He's versus an old foe from the NFC East in the Dallas Cowboys coming to town in Arizona in week 3. So I know it's a tough matchup, but it also could be a ball game where they're trailing and they're going to have to throw the ball a whole lot. So right now, Zach Ertz available in 90% of fantasy leagues. The next tight end is Jake Ferguson, mentioned of the Dallas Cowboys. So Ferguson found the end zone in week 2 versus the New York Jets. I know he only had 3 catches, 11 yards, and a touchdown, but we know Dak Prescott, he likes targeting the tight end. That's what got Dalton Schultz the nice contract over there in Houston. And Schultz, he was a product of the system. And like I said, with Dak Prescott liking the tight end, so right now Ferguson, the number 1 tight end over there. But we saw Shoemaker as well score 1 for this Dallas Cowboy team. But anyway, the first 2 weeks, week 1 at the Giants, 2 catches, 11 yards, 7 targets. And week 2 versus the Jets, 3 catches, 11 yards, and a touchdown with 4 targets. So 11 targets the first 2 games. You know, the Cowboys, they got CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, even though he missed week 2's ball game. And they got good weapons on that team. So right now, Ferguson could be a guy that could roam the middle of the field, be a red zone threat like we saw from him, obviously, in week 2. And he's a tight end available right now in 70% of fantasy leagues. Next tight end is Tyler Conklin of the New York Jets. I know Conklin, he had 10 points, and some of it was in garbage time. But last season, when Zach Wilson did start, him and Wilson had a decent rapport, and Conklin had some decent ball games. And even last season, 552 yards, receiving 3 touchdowns on 58 catches. So week 2, solid game, 5 catches, 50 yards, 10 PPR points for Tyler Conklin. In week 3, I know it's a tough ball game versus the Patriots that always have the Jets number. And Bill Belichick, one of the best schemers of all time, obviously putting a game plan together against an offense. But right here, Conklin, I think he could be a guy under the radar as long as Garrett Wilson's healthy, obviously. He was banged up towards the end of that ball game and we saw him get taken back to the locker room. So we'll see if he's healthy. But anyway, if you need a tight end in deeper leagues, Conklin right now available in 96% of fantasy leagues. The next tight end is Dawson Knox of the Buffalo Bills. So I know all the Dalton Kincaid talk, obviously, with this Buffalo Bill team. But Dawson Knox, the first 2 weeks, he's gone out there and he's put up decent PPR numbers. Week 1 at the Jets, 3 catches, 25 yards, 4 targets. And week 2 versus the Raiders, 3 catches, 10 yards, and a touchdown. So right now, I know he'll probably be a touchdown-dependent tight end is Dawson Knox, but he's still one of the favorite targets of Josh Allen. I know, obviously, you got Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, who finally had a breakout ball game. You got Shakur, you got Hurdy over there. But right now, Dawson Knox, he's still a red zone threat, like I mentioned, for this Buffalo Bill team, and also a security blanket to a certain extent for Josh Allen. So right now, if you're in a deeper type of league, 12-14 team league, with a lot of positions or whatever, Dawson Knox, he's available right now. 9% of fantasy leagues. And a tight end I would take a flyer on. And the 5th and final tight end I looked at off the wire this week's Gerald Everett of Los Angeles Chargers. So every last week he was dropped in 12% of fantasy leagues. But we know this Charger offense, obviously they're very talented. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, even though he missed the week 2 ball game. And Gerald Everett, he'll have some good games and some mediocre games. In week 1 versus Miami, only 2 catches, 21 yards. And then week 2 with Tennessee, a better ball game, no doubt about it. 3 catches, 47 yards. And he broke a few tackles as well. So week 3 in Minnesota, not the greatest of defenses, especially that middle of the field. I think we're going to see open. We just saw Dallas Goedert have a pretty decent ball game in week 2 versus Minnesota. So right now, I think Everett could go out there and make some plays. This Charger team already 0-2 on the season. And if Austin Eckler is out once again, they're going to drop back 40, 50 times as well and throw the rock a lot. So right now, Everett available in tons of fantasy leagues at 62%. So that's a few tight ends I looked at here in week 3 of the fantasy football season.